Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters counsel is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
The Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters counsel is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to Legally Speaking on Fly Radio 101.1 FM and Spectrum TV on Star Times and Free to Air TV. My name is Anthony Ebuk. I'm of Law Partners and Associates, and you're on to Legally Speaking. Today, we have a topic that involves everybody. In everyday life, we do contracts, marriages, we contract, whilst going to church. All we do is contract. We buy what contract is, what rights they have with contracts. That's what we're discussing today on Legally Speaking. I have with me in the studio two regular faces to help expatiate on that topic. Hannah is saying is a teacher with the private sector, right? Hannah, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I also have with me Etini Basi. Etini Basi is a lawyer with Law Partners and Associates. Etini, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
All right. I'll start with Hannah. Hannah, when you hear contracts, what comes to your mind?
A contract is an agreement between parties. One person makes an offer, the other accepts the offer, and then I think there's always a payment. There's something that's paid for. Okay, I offer a service, I make an offer I want to give you this. And
Okay.
You agree that you want to accept what I'm offering. So when I make an offer and there's an acceptance of that offer that I've made, we have a contract, an agreement. The two people involved have agreed.
All right, so Etini, let's hear from you, maybe from the legal point of view.
Okay, generally, contract is an agreement between two or more people. So basically, we have offer, we have acceptance, we have consideration.
Okay.
Those are the three most important elements. And then stepping forward, we have intention to create legal relations.
Okay.
An offered contract doesn't have to be written down and all of that. It can also be made oral.
Okay. You see, generally, when people hear the word contracts, they feel it's between a government agency and private persons. I've been awarded a contract.
Yeah.
So a normal Nigerian feels contract simply means being getting a job offer to grade roads or supply things. So that's a contract. But unfortunately, that's just the minutest idea of what contracts are. Contracts are basically the relationship between parties or people. Maybe not just people, a group of people and another group of people, companies, and whatever nomenclature you want to use, but there are always parties to the contract, one side and the other side, okay? Or three sides, four sides, everybody doing whatever they've agreed to do in the relationship. So a man walks into the market, he buys an okra and walks away. A lot of people don't know that's a contract. I've displayed my ways in front of me. That's an offer. A man comes in and prices it. How much is your okra? He tells you 5,000 naira here, 200 naira here, 300 naira.
And you say, are you not going to sell it to me?
And you negotiate the counter offer
until you agree.
Then you are comfortable with what is being presented before you and at the rates of that presentation.
And
then
I also understand that simple jumping on entry bus.
Yes.
Enter into
a contract.
With
yes.
the person to carry you to where
one
he
from
said
one
he
point
was
to
going
another.
to carry you to.
No, but we normally have issues with that one. So many issues.
So when that happens, the moment you pay money, it means you furnish consideration, right?
Okay, so these buses that we jump into and you don't pay money until you get there. Will you say that there was a contract that point that you
yes, because
that you're not paying money yet?
Yeah, because the guy tells you, maybe like if it's Lagos, he's offering to take you on a ride to Ojolegba at an amount, a presumed amount. And because he said 15 naira, Ojolegba, he has even told you the offer. That 15 naira to Ojolegba.
So you go there and you say, oh, you said I don't have 100, I don't bring 1,000 naira, I don't have change for 1,000 naira. And you now bring out 1,000 naira. So what if you are a judge and somebody comes to contact you and just
so those are some aspects of it that lay people don't even understand that those are contracts.
So even renting a house is a contract.
Yes,
when you go meet a landlord and
that's in a major contract. That's a major contract because largely it's a writing. So those simpler ones like those Okada jumping in and out, which doesn't have much to do with written documentation. I know in some buses they give you some pieces of paper, interstate travels.
Yeah.
They write a receipt.
They don't ask you to put your name down on the manifest.
Or the name of a relative.
What do we do with those that enter buses at the end of the day? You know, everyone knows from one point to one point it's like 200 naira. They enter someone's bus. At the point of getting down, you hear, it's 100 naira that I have. I don't have 200 naira. And they will drag for half the day for the remaining part of the 100 naira. How do you classify that?
That's the thing. People don't understand that it's a contract and an agreement. The moment you stepped into that bus when the person said it's 200 naira, you had accepted that offer. You should have counted on you should have counted on the ground to say, this is what I have before he says okay. Because it happens. Some people will say, and the driver will say, okay, come in. Then at times when the driver does that for one person, you now see other passengers wanting to, no, now if you've collected from, you agreed. Even if you're 20, this one is 5 naira, this one, you agreed.
Because those
It's a
contracts
contract.
at that point is personal. The personal relationship between this person and the other person. So we might do the same, offer the same services, but the charges are different, right? All right, let's also go back to the beginning. What are the elements of a contract? I think we discussed them out. Every contract should have an offer.
What's an offer?
Yes, what's an offer? A presentation, a representation. That I can do this for a fee. You might name the fee, you might not name the fee at that point of offer. But the important thing is that there's an offer to do a service or to sell a good
To give a product.
or a product. Now, where that offer has been made, there's a second step that's awaiting, which is the step of acceptance. Some offer are made directly to a person, to a party. Some are made to the whole world. So I just display my ways, and they are an offer to anybody who is interested. So an interested party also counter offers. It offers to buy. Do you have salt? I don't know if you've heard people ask that question in the market. Do you have this? He said, yes, I do. He accepts to have. How much is it? Those are negotiations of contracts in a very minute environment. And he says, it's 10 naira. Okay, I thought you had the one of 3 naira. And he walks away.
I think what you want to say is in an informal environment.
Yes, yes.
There's no formality
About that transaction. But all those things are still contracts. It doesn't have to be in writing. But here there is this other one which I think we want to focus on today. The area of the contracts that are in formal environment. Formal contracts must have been in writing. I know people interact, people interact in some formal contracts still orally, some of which could include tenancy agreements. The tenancy agreement, by all means, ought to be a formal contract, because the contract has stemmed from a period of time to maybe a year or two, a long stretch of time. That relationship ought to be defined properly by writing in a written document. However, Nigeria at this point still has this informal contract, which even the court admits is still a contract, right? So, Hannah, what do you think should be some key features in a contract of that? I just want to test your mind. In a regular contract, what should be the key things that should feature? Like headings.
I know that I believe that when you want to get to make an offer, most of the time there are conditions. So conditions also state what conditions that should be fulfilled, the things you don't want to be done, the kind of behavior you don't want, the kind of thing. But all the conditions that are stated are things that people must agree on.
Okay.
For me, what I understand of the contract is that the people that are involved have to be in agreement. Then I also am also aware of a situation where the law will now say this person wasn't party to the contract.
Okay.
For example, you can rent a house to somebody,
okay,
and then the person now brings another person in to stay in that house. That person is not the one who you made the offer to. It's not the person that accepted the offer. So in a situation where conditions are not met, that person cannot go to court and say,
okay,
this wasn't met.
Okay.
This was the terms of the contract. It wasn't met because the agreement wasn't between you and the other party.
Excellent, you've made a good try. So, Etini, let's hear from you.
Yes, in a contract, the parties must have agreed to the terms of the contract, what they want to be done in the contract, the amount they want to get from the contract, the amount of the contract, whether property or anything. So they must agree on the amounts, and then they must have conditions. Conditions are not like always that you must have to fulfill certain conditions before a contract can be enforced. It can be enforced, but sometimes there are conditions. For example, if someone wants to buy, let's say a car in like 2 months' time, yes, and the condition is that you have to pay maybe part of the money you're supposed to buy a car to show commitment. If that is a condition. If you don't pay that amount, then that means you've not fulfilled that condition, and that contract has not come into force yet.
Okay, so generally you have touched on the aspects, or some of the aspects I wanted. From a formal document of a contract, one of the most important things is what is called the titling of that contract. Contract for sale of car, like she said. Land agreement, tenancy agreement. So there's a heading that defines what you are expected to be seeing.
So that's a formal.
Yes. Now, you also identified an important aspect, which is the parties to that agreement.
Yeah.
Who are the parties to this contract? Parties to the contract will include landlord, tenants, if it's a landlord tenancy, buyer, seller, if it is a sale agreement, vendor, vendee, right?
Even in employment.
Employment, you have
It's
employer, employee. But those titling defines the roles and responsibilities of each parties, the duties and responsibilities of each parties to this contract. So you are called this tenants, and the other person is called landlord. Now, without even going further, when you see names like tenant and landlord, what comes to your mind would be what would be expected from a landlord. The landlord is expected to give out a property. What's the expectation of a tenant? As lay as anybody could be, he has to pay rent. So what's the rent? So a formal contract must begin, most importantly, apart from the heading, with the parties of the contract. Then there is an introduction of what this contract, or how and why these parties are entering into this contract. The how and why would be okay, whereas this person is the owner of a property located at so and so, and he wishes to let it out for rent to a commercial business or private residential, as a private residential apartment. And whereas this other person, the tenant, is desirous of renting a so and so property, the parties have agreed to enter into this contract under the following terms and conditions. So a formal contract begins with that. So when you have that, the table is set for every other thing to now fall into place, for you to say, okay, this person will do this person will do that, and these are the responsibilities, and failure to do this. Then you can also begin to look at where this contract fails. What do we do with it? So what do we do with it would include, do we go for arbitration, or do we go to the regular court?
Is that part of what is agreed upon in the contract?
Yes.
So if it fails, we will not go to court, we'll go for arbitration.
Yes.
Oh, I wasn't.
There are certain contracts that require an understanding of how these things are managed. Okay. The management will include, if we go to a formal court, it will take a long time. If we refer, because of the technicalities of this, if we refer the matter to an arbitration, a particular panel of arbitration who understand the workings of this the technicalities of this kind of contract.
Fine. So you're saying that that is incorporated in the contract?
Yes.
What kind of
express
Yes.
term in the contract?
Ha.
Right. An express term of the contract that does not, yes, that will not allow, might foreclose you from even making efforts at this thing.
Okay.
Making efforts
Okay.
at
The
doing
important thing is you agreed to that. So yeah. So you considered and agreed to that term which said we will not go to court, we'll go for arbitration. So nobody forced you, you agreed, all right.
So now, today, what is the purpose of a contract?
Yes. First of all, the purpose of a contract is just basically the normal simple contract that we have is basically to what do you call it? To give and take. That's the very first purpose. But then stepping further, the main purpose of having a contract, a formal contract, is for intention to create legal relations. In case this contract fails, what do I do? Where do I go to? If I go to court, what happens? If I go this way, what happens? That's the main purpose of a contract. Yeah,
because I also would add that the purpose of a formal contract is to have a document that can be referred to, a referral document. Recall that at the beginning, this is what we said will be our responsibility, nothing more than that. Recall at the beginning, this is what you said you will do. And that document will speak for itself.
Yeah, so you can't import what
was
not agreed
not
upon
there.
in the
And now,
document.
even if you go to court, you are only going to court to say, please, court, read this document and give us an interpretation as to the expectation from me or from my party, the other party to the contract, and then enforce it. So the duty of the court will be to enforce a contract that was voluntarily entered into by parties.
But what there are certain agreements to that, because there are contracts that are actually entered into with the intention of fraud.
Yes, illegal contracts. So the courts don't enforce illegal contracts. So let's.
Then also there are people that you can't enter into contracts with. So even if you said you had entered into a contract with them, the law will say there are people that.
Let's go on a short break. When we come back from that break, we open the phone lines. You can call in to ask questions with respect to contracts, and if you have any contract that you want to share with us, if it's failed contract or a contract that is doing well, the phone lines will open after this short break.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court, my lord.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My Lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My Lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my Lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my Lord. These cases are in court, my Lord. I'm just reminding your Lordship.
My Lord, sorry, my Lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.
All right, welcome to Legally Speaking. I'm still with Hannah 18 and 18 Ibaski. We're talking on contracts, especially as it applies to the Nigerian legal system. The phone numbers to call now, the phone lines are open, 090-222-31011. I repeat that number, 090-222-31011. We also have an alternative number you can call in case you don't get us on the other number. That number is 070-454-17707. Repeat that alternative number, 070-454-17707. All right. So, Hannah was talking about
before
parties to
you went,
contracts.
before we went on a break, I was talking about the fact that there are some people that the law forbids you entering into a contract with them. If you do, it will not be regarded as if there was a contract.
Okay.
And I know that one of them are children.
Minors.
Minors. That means people less than 18 years.
Yes.
So I am thinking, I have a 16-year-old child who is in the university and doesn't want to live in the hostel. So I rent accommodation for that child. Does that mean that the landlord will enter into contract with me and not the child? Because the tenancy is an agreement between the landlord and tenant. This child is the one that's living in that house. So will the tenancy agreement be drawn between the landlord and the parents of the child?
Okay, a 16-year-old child is still a minor according to the laws of the country, and cannot make contracts or enter into contracts with anybody except with the guardianship of her parents or her guardian or someone older than someone of legal age to do that. So from your question, the tenancy agreement would not be between the landlord and the child. It would be the landlord and the parents. But the terms of the contract now specify what kind of tenancy it is and what is expected of in the tenancy.
Okay. Yeah, you see, whereas there is not a thin line, there's a thin line between legality and illegality, such contracts can be voidable, but not void because of the age of the child. But there are certain contracts that are outright void contracts. You enter into a contract with an insane person. If that child comes of age, becomes 18 years old, you can regularize that contract and will continue with it.
I know, but I'm talking about when that child is under 18.
Age. Now, when that child is under age 18, he will not be particularly bound.
That means if you rent that house to that child and tomorrow the child is not paying you rent again,
you cannot enforce it. Yeah, because you can't take a child to court. That's why you'll have to use a guardian ad litem or any other person to rent it on his behalf. But that will lead us to a question of enforcement when we get there, right? Because we are going to get to a point where we discuss the breach of contract and how you enforce contracts between parties if there is a failure or a breach of that contract. So, which other categories would include persons of unsound mind?
Persons of unsound mind.
Persons of unsound mind is regarding in law to be a dollar in capax. A dollar in capax means he has no brain capacity to understand what he's doing with you.
Now, how do you qualify somebody as a dollar in capax, if I may use the word you've used? Because I don't think it only refers to
Persons
the people
over
that
seven.
are so mad that they
No,
walk
even
around
children,
on the
even
streets.
children, if even children are referred to as dollar in capax, they don't have the mental capacity to contract. You know what you are doing. He doesn't know what he's doing. He just signs a piece of paper. He feels he does know what he's doing.
But in that mental capacity, there are periods of
Lucidity, yes. Even with that, that period of lucidity, the law does not. How do you prove that it was at the time he was lucid that he signed the contract? You need to have that exactly. All right, numbers to call is still 090-222-31011. Alternative number to call is 070-454-17707. Yes, so
if I wake up and say I am insane,
then you have to prove. The burden of proof.
It will be on me.
Yes. He who asserts has the burden to prove that assertion. So I walk into court and tell court I'm mad. They say, okay, we have heard.
Where the doctors report and all.
And I start tearing my clothes. They say, we know. We have seen you before. But he comes in and the lawyer says, my lord, that man standing here has mental issues. This is a report from the medical doctor from a recognized mental institution, federal government most times, or state government institution. And they read through, and maybe the doctor comes and says, this person has been my outpatient, in the outpatient ward for a while. He has these issues, and because of these issues, it's not realistic that he would have had mental capacity to contract at this point. The law would take that and void that contract.
That is if the person had been.
Okay, so assuming somebody came in lucid, like a tenant,
and over time
becomes mad along the line.
It is possible. So the question is, what do you do?
Yeah, what do you do?
If you take the person to court, and the answer is no, do you sue a mad person?
So what do you do? I'm thinking of a landlord that has this happen to them. Do you give the mad person quick notice?
No, the contract terminates itself automatically by natural causes. This person was my tenant. He has become mentally derailed and he breaks things. He threatened to burn down my house. Please, can you cause him to be moved, not evicted, moved to a mental facility where he will have proper care.
So who will take charge of that?
It's not your concern. You are speaking to the court.
Right.
But you have to be courteous about calling the person. It's a madman getting out of my house. But when you explain to the court that this person, hello? Sorry, I heard somebody's calling from it. What's the first name?
Udom.
Hello, go on, sir.
Udom Boniface.
Udom Boniface, yes.
Yes. I want to ask this landlord. Landlord, don't just give you verbal information, say, if you pack out. That time where your money you have not expired. Do you back out and that time?
Okay, thank you very much. Well, you see, this question is not a straight question.
So your money has not expired, yeah?
Ordinarily, notices are supposed to be issued before the expiration of your rent.
Okay.
But
the notice is telling you that after the expiration of your rent, can't tell you to leave while that rent doesn't expire.
Yes, landlord is telling you, which is why I said it's not a straight question. If your landlord tells you 6 months prior to your termination of the agreement, your tenancy or your rent, please, at the termination of this rent, I will require you to give up possession of my house. I've terminated the yearly tenancy if it was a yearly tenancy. Then it's in order to tell you that It's wrong for the landlord to tell you after the expiration of your rent to leave.
Because what he said was, your
Hello?
rent has not expired and you're asked to pack out verbally. Should you pack out? So I don't know whether he means the landlord is saying pack out immediately, that I'm telling you to move while your rent is not expired. So if that's what he means,
that's why I
that
said
means
this question
what?
is open-ended.
And so since it's open-ended and it's not here, assuming that's what he meant, that you're told to leave when your rent is not expired.
That's on the other hand, the landlord cannot ask you to vacate a property when your tenancy subsists. But he can ask you to vacate, he can notify you to vacate as soon as your tenancy expires. So that's the difference. That's what we wish to pass, the information we wish to pass.
Okay, so the information that is being passed here is that the landlord doesn't, in fact the law does not even encourage landlords to wait until your rent expires
the law promotes
before
that.
they tell you
Yes, the law
they don't
promotes
want
that.
you in the house
6
anymore.
months to the end of the term.
If it was a yearly...
Yes, give him notice. Oral information is notice, especially if the landlord did not let that property to you with documents, agreements. If you had a verbal agreement and you just paid rent, within his right to tell you, like you came in, please leave my property. That's it. But Hannah had also introduced an aspect of it, which I think we should move into now. Third parties in a contract.
You're not a third party.
Third parties in a contract. I said you had introduced that part.
Yeah, when you say third party, you're not a party to the contract,
I know,
are you?
I know, that's what I'm trying to say. Who are third parties to a contract? A man rents a house and later on brings in his girlfriend and then leaves the property. And the girlfriend is issued notice to quit. And she goes to court to say he's entitled to 6 months notice. How would the court view that person? I think I go to 18.
No, before we talk about the court viewing that person, I mean, the landlord issuing the girlfriend a notice to quit, is it necessary? You didn't have a contract with that person. So does the law require you to, or because I did some reading some time ago and I was amazed at what law does. Could it not be that you're now issuing that quit notice is you claiming, accepting this person as your tenant?
No, issuing a person, an occupier of your property, a notice that you intend to recover possession from him is not an admission. Now, there are two notices. One is a notice of owner's intention to recover possession of his property.
Yes.
I acknowledge that you are staying on that property. And now I'm telling you I want to recover it. It is my property. It's different from saying notice to quit property. You issue a notice to quit to a tenant by whatever way he's categorized.
But when you're saying recover possession, does possession not pass to a tenant when you enter into a...
That's why you want to recover it.
And so what's the difference between you're now saying you issued notice to quit to a tenant and not notice to recover possession?
At the expiration of tenancy, okay, 6 months down, depending on the type of tenancy, 6 months before the expiration of that tenancy, you want the tenant to leave the property at the expiration of his tenancy.
Yes.
You issue make 6 months notice to quit that property. Now, if he still stays in the property after the 6 months notice and after the expiration of his tenancy and is still in that property, that means he's no longer the man's tenant. He's a tenant there at will. So the tenant...
Okay, so you're now holding his possession of his... without his consent.
So he goes to court.
He gives you notice that he wants to recover possession of...
So
that means that possession is officially, legally transferred
terminated
to a tenant when the tenancy is on.
Yes. All right.
And the other hand, what about the third party thing? There's what we call sublease.
That's when the landlord agrees
Yes,
to
that's
the
what I'm
use
coming to.
subletting.
That's where the landlord agrees.
Mm.
The tenancy agreement.
But generally, so
okay, now when there is a
let's-
sublease, yes, when there is a sublease, that agreement is not with the landlord, right?
It's
between
three
the.
of them.
Okay,
No.
the landlord is a part of that sublease.
The sublease is between the subleasor and the new person.
No, the tenancy agreement at first must have to determine if you are to bring someone in as a sub.
Yes.
Or
Now,
not.
but the head leaseor down, which is the landlord,
yes,
cannot cross to the subleasor. Cannot cross to the the lessee in the sublease to terminate. He doesn't have any business. So that's why I wanted to come to that point. Can third parties enforce agreements even though the agreements were made for their benefits? A third party, the landlord, but I think we should try and drive away from the landlord tenancy.
Okay.
A man rents a property for his child as a minor, a 16-year-old, and that property has leakages or bad spots. And that 16-year-old goes to court to say, my father rented this property. The property is bad. It was rented for me. I want to compel the landlord to make repairs. Question, will the court listen to him?
Okay.
Answer, no. Because there's no privity of contract between him and the landlord. There's no privity of contract. The landlord owes the other party called tenant a responsibility. He does not owe you any responsibility. So when you come in to say, by virtue of my relationship with the official tenant, I should begin to make demands on the landlord, the law will frown at it and be wondering where you came from. I will call you a meddlesome interloper.
So now I'm curious. So hostels, when universities offer hostels to these minors, what is that?
Now, there's this presumption. I recall that when I was a student, part of the conditions to write the UTME was that it must not have been a minor.
It's not. It was 16 years, and
Yes.
16 years is a minor.
Aha.
University is Nigeria allows children.
So when I lease out my property to you, I presume that I'm leasing out my property to an adult of a university age. That if he was a child, that presumption is there. Anyway. That presumption is there anyway.
So
But now, if you come to court and you're desperately trying to prove that you're a minor, then there's a question mark on your integrity. My Lord, I'm a child. I'm a child. I was not supposed to enter into that contract. The law will not listen to you because you are deliberately trying to find a defect in a contract you voluntarily entered into.
you say voluntarily enter into, but the law says you shouldn't enter into a contract with this kind of person.
And this person tells you, when we entered into this
that
contract,
person didn't lie to you. You didn't ask the person. You saw the person and you didn't say, hey,
no, but
boy, are you up to
I
18
agree.
years?
The circumstances of each case will determine. There are certain cases a court would say, you are 19, and we want to bring, the court can compel you at this time you are 19. The court can compel you. Because if you are 16, you can't even go to court in the first place to say, my Lord, I'm filing an action, I'm 16 years old. Tell this man not to bother me. I was a minor when I entered into the contract. What rights do you have? Unless you're going to the family court.
No, you're not even going, because yes, what I'm thinking, the scenario that's playing in my mind is this 15-year-old, the father paid for 1 year.
Okay.
And the father has not come back to pay. And you ask the child to leave. Okay, yeah, you can ask the child to leave, but can you ask the child to leave? The person is the one living in your house and you allow that person to live
You
as
should
a
notice.
child.
You should notice to the father.
Okay.
You should notice to the father. The father fails to come.
But if the father wasn't the one that you entered into, yes, sorry, I've gotten it clear now. This 16-year-old comes and says, I want to rent a room, and you give the room to the person, forgetting that the law says that you don't enter into a contract with somebody. The father didn't come. You had accepted money from this 16-year-old, and the 16-year-old starts living in your house. And then the 16-year-old starts not doing what you had expected of the contract you entered into. And you take the 16-year-old to court, and the 16-year-old says, I'm 16 years. What would the court say at that point?
Well, it depends on how the evidence is laid.
You can't deny false
Illegality. But the 16-year-old you entered into a contract with presumed himself to be 18 and only came to realize that he's 16. Now, there's a provision of the law that says a party who voluntarily enters into a contract cannot turn around to claim that the contract is illegal, that the court will not listen to it.
Okay, so what happens to that provision of the law there? Because I think I read that it's just for supplies, like food that you can deal with minors. So if the law had stated clearly, is it an excuse that you didn't know? You didn't ask this child, are you?
No, we are not saying you asked the child.
So
we are simply saying.
Why are you not saying that?
No, we are simply saying that the law does not allow a party to approbate and reprobate. When the party came, there was a presumption of regularity. And now he has defaulted in performance. He tries to raise the issue of irregularity. The court would shut you out on that issue of irregularity. I would say perform on your obligation to the contract. Because you knew, you defrauded, you knew that there was an irregularity. You went on to give an impression of regularity to that contract, only to turn up in court to say, my lord, that contract was irregular from day one. Why did you enter into it? It's called voluntary non-fit injuria. That's, you cannot complain of an act you did as a volunteer. Correct? So, yeah, let's get to this part, which is like a closing aspect of it. Where a party enters into a contract and fails to perform on the contract, are there remedies?
That's why the contract is even important.
Because that document has a binding effect. When once it's executed by the parties, whatever is on that document binds all parties. Except it was done fraudulently. And the court does not write contracts for parties. The court only interprets contracts of parties and give life to it. So if you go to enter into a contract that says I'll pay 5 million naira per month rent, especially if you've paid the first 5 million naira, the other party goes to court to enforce it and say, my lord, that property cannot be worth 5 million. The court will not listen to you. The court will go ahead to say, you are owing this man 5 million for 2 years, which is 10 million naira. You enter into this contract voluntarily. And would award damages for the failure on your part to perform what you had given assurance in writing that you would perform on.
So if you move away from, because we seem to be talking about landlord and tenant contracts, there are other contracts. If you're talking about it, I know there's something like if there's partial performance, you go to court to ask the court to order for full performance and things like that. Now I mean imagining how the contract of employment works.
Well, as you begin to imagine the way the contract of employment works, don't forget NLC is still trying to strike. and that we are really out of time.
Okay.
So if you want to start a contract of employment now, we have to take a full day and look at it. But the contract of employment, like every other contract, stipulates rules, regulations, and terms and conditions of employment.
So you need
So
to
you're
be
bound,
aware of
yes.
what the.
A lot of
so
people
if
don't
your
know.
employer doesn't meet it, you go to court and ask them to.
All right, that's how far we can go
enforce it.
for legally speaking today. I'm happy for those who called in, those who couldn't call, but for you that listen to us, I'm sure you've learned one or two things on the law of contract. Happy we had I said, and 18 Ibasi. It's the same time next week when we see again. I hope everything you do will be legal.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abused. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but you can't be talking about cases which are in court,
Is
my lord.
this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in cross-examination.
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every
Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m.
for Legally Speaking.